Hey, you kids, get off my lawn. Unless you're mowing it, let's see your mobile phone for initiative. Do as I say. What's up, a frowny face? Go out and play. Just like your parents did. Just like your parents did. As if your parents did.
Hello and welcome to First Gen Gamers. I am co-host number one, Jed. Co-host number two, Ashley.
Hello.
Say hello to the people.
Hello.
We are back. We were going to do a list format episode, and then someone forgot to format their list as a list.
No, it's not that. We can still do a list. It's just I wanted to pick ones that I was familiar with, and I'm too young to be familiar with marketing campaigns from a couple of generations.
It's fine. I'm just teasing you. This will probably work out better, to be honest. Using the list format worked for me as a way to format them in my brain and to not forget older ones. But yeah, there's so many ways for this topic, so many candidates for this topic that it just picking one per generation just doesn't do it justice.
Yeah, I have like 10 and they're all kind of clumped together, but they're good.
Well, what is the topic? Let's let the people in on that secret.
Worst marketing fails.
Yes. This one came to me in an epiphany. I think it was like brushing my teeth or something. And all of a sudden I just thought of it. And I just loved the idea of, because we've all played shitty games, but sometimes it's not the game's fault. Sometimes there's just terrible I mean, it could be a bad game too, but sometimes there's just terrible fucking marketing. And those stories are often funnier than the games themselves. So I thought it would be a fun avenue to explore. And I want to kick it off with probably the oldest one that'll be on here, and one that's a little personal, if you don't mind.
No.
All right. So this goes back to 1983. A young Jed, 6 years old. He gets his second
I'm just kidding.
Thanks. No, I quit.
I'm kidding.
So I'm 6. I'm getting my second video game console ever. My first console was the Intellivision. My parents decided to upgrade me to the Atari 5200. The Atari 5200 did not sell well at all. It was a total fucking disaster after the 2600. I didn't know that at the time. I was 6. I was just happy because it had great graphics for the time, and it had my favorite game of all, actually my two favorite games of all time at the time, Joust and Moon Patrol. I was on cloud 9. I couldn't have cared less about the business side. But the 5200 had a really small library. And the predecessor, the 2600, as we all know, has more games than the entire goddamn industry, because everyone made games for the 2600. Fucking dog food companies made games for the 2600. So there's just it felt like thousands of games. So Atari decided to try to boost the sales of the 5200 with an adapter that would plug into it that would allow you to play 2600 games. What they failed to do in the marketing was be clear about the fact that the adapter only worked with certain production models of the 5200. All they did was they put a little sticker on the box, one of those little sunburst stickers, and it just says works with certain models. But they didn't explain what models or how you could tell the difference between one model from the other. So you would buy it, you would take it home, you'd plug it in, you'd put in your copy of Combat or, God forbid, ET. Yes, I had it. And nothing would happen. And that's what happened to me. I had a stack of 2600 games ready to go, and the fucking thing didn't work because I had the wrong production model. My parents had to spend I don't know. I imagine at the time it was probably a lot of money, probably wasn't, with inflation, it probably wasn't much now, but at the time, I know my dad was pissed because he had to send my Atari out to get modded so it would work. So fuck you, Atari. 6-year-old me says, fuck you so hard.
That's honestly, I kind of know what that feels like. I can tell a quick story. It's adjacent, but like that must have been so heartbreaking. Oh, I would have been so sad.
Oh yeah, I was like, because it was this huge thing that was, I mean, the Atari 5200 is already this monstrous console. It's like 3 feet wide by 3 feet deep. It's like this gigantic ancient typewriter size thing. And then you put this adapter that is just as wide as it vertically into the cartridge slot. And it must be 1.5 feet tall. So it's this monster thing. And it's got all these switches on it. And then you take the cartridge and you put it on top. And I was just like, okay, cool. I finally get to play all of these games in the 2600. Click, nothing happens. Take the thing out, put in a 5200 game. It worked fine. So livid.
My really sad story is my fault, but I know what that feels like because I had, when I was really young, the bright green Game Boy. I was a big fan of Pokemon. I still own all of them. And where we used to live, where my mom's parking spot was, there was like a grate for the sewer. And I stepped down, I'm playing Pokemon, and I'm aware that it's there, and something happened, and I just fucking dropped it in there, and I was so sad. Thankfully, my stepdad, who got me into gaming, he's like my dad, the best guy in the world. Love you, Tim. He felt so bad. He went to GameStop and got me like that clear purpley one because oh God, that was like just a terrible heartbreak. So he's a champion for that. But I know what that's like that great disappointment when something happens to your gaming console as a kid. It's like the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah, it just like the world just collapses in on you.
Yeah.
Like this thing that brings me fun is no longer being fun. It's being difficult.
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, it's so sad.
Oh, yeah. I hated Atari so much for that. Still do. It's still like, there's still just a part of me that I will never get over that.
No, I get it. That's terrible.
Oh, all right. Let's hear one of yours. One that probably doesn't inspire while spewing rage.
No, mine are all really funny, and not in order, so I'm sorry. But I'll start with one of the older ones, and it's Turok, which I played that game. I'll never forget. That game scared the shit out of me.
Turok on the N64?
Xbox. So the Evolution. In 2002, Acclaim Entertainment was probably desperate for attention. So they cooked up a marketing scheme for Turok Evolution that was absurd. So they offered £500 and a free Xbox to any UK resident that was willing to legally change their name to Turok. So VG247 did a deep dive because there were people that allegedly changed their name, 5 people. And during their deep dive, they were able to figure out that those 5 people who supposedly decided to take this plunge weren't just random fans, but they were actors that they hired to play the part. So not only did they have this campaign that was ridiculous and like life-changing, but it was also a fucking scam. So unsurprisingly, these stunts did not save Acclaim from their downward spiral. The company eventually went bankrupt, leaving behind a legacy of games that were mediocre and marketing campaigns that were even shittier. So fuck you, Acclaim.
Oh yeah. 2000's Acclaim was they were something. Boy, were they something with their advertising campaigns.
Yeah.
You know what? I will skip ahead to one from that same generation. Another Acclaim one. Burnout 2.
I had a little note in there about it, but I had a feeling you were going to do it, so I didn't. Yeah, Point of Impact.
Yeah.
Take it away.
In another attempt to generate publicity because they were flailing and needed anyone, dear God, to buy their games, Acclaim announced for Burnout 2, which is a game that it's part racing, but also its more popular mode is causing massive car crashes and seeing how much damage you can do in dollars.
Yeah, that's normal. I
Yeah.
do IRL, duh.
And it's a fun mode. Like the last Burnout game, Burnout Paradise, that's half the fun is just running into shit and blowing shit up. But Burnout is very 2000s adrenaline, axe body spray, monster energy. It's very extreme.
So like alpha
Oh,
male.
yeah.
This
Yeah.
physical form alpha male.
Oh, yeah. That I'm surprised that game didn't come with like a paid subscription to Maxim or something. It is just the most aggro like mentality.
Yeah.
But they tried to market the game with a stunt where anyone who bought the game but got a speeding ticket on their way to buy the game, they would pay the speeding ticket. So they were encouraging people to drive recklessly.
Mm.
This did not sit well with the police. Never mind the fact that it also broke a law and apparently that another person can't pay your speeding ticket. So, yeah. Good job on Acclaim's legal researching that particular advertising campaign.
Another honorable mention for them. They tried to buy ad space on gravestones for Shadow Man Second Coming. So
I had that one down too. That they were
unhinged.
amazing.
I feel like they were on the cusp of something really great. They were close and they went a little bit too far. They could have had something really special, but they just, they went a little bit too far.
Yes. And their marketing people were apparently carny trash or something. Because that's the only way to explain that these frankly insane ideas. But God bless them because they created such great stories.
Yeah, to me it's like it feels like a meth-induced fever dream, but they could also be. Yeah.
All right, another one I got, another older one for the Super Nintendo, a game that has a beloved, die-hard cult following that sometimes thinks that they're louder than they really are. Sorry, small editorial there. And that's Earthbound. The original Earthbound marketing campaign is baffling because the print ads went out of their way to try to discourage you from buying the game. The print ads would feature the game next to like puddles of vomit or other disgusting things, bodily substances. The slogan or the headline, the banner headline within the ad was "This game stinks," and some of the ads even had scratch and sniff functionality, and the scratch and sniff smells were garbage and puke and other lovely aromas that I'm sure you want to indulge in. Is it any surprise that the game didn't sell well?
Yes.
Like, I'm not sure if they were going for some extraordinary form of reverse psychology, but it didn't work.
I love it.
What do you got? What's your next one?
Let's do Hitman Absolution. Hiring fake hits. Square Enix. Go ahead.
I considered that one and I didn't end up putting it down, but I did look at that one and go, that's a pretty good candidate. So go ahead.
So Square Enix has also made some weird decisions over the years, but the Hitman Absolution Hire a Hitman Facebook app is some next level corporate brain rot because I'm not really sure like the best way to market a game would be having fake assassins send people fake death threats to their Facebook friends. And of course, like Zuck the cuck would allow that on his platform.
Of course.
So here's how it worked. You'd pick a Facebook friend and then you'd select a reason that they deserved, like the word deserved, to be assassinated. And it could be like being a terrible friend or cheating. And then the app would generate a video of their profile picture with a sniper scope over their face, like implying that they were about to be taken out by a contract killer. Totally normal. Not worrisome at all. Shockingly, but also not shockingly, people fucking hated this. Like, imagine logging into Facebook and then seeing your face in a murder for hire sim because your friend thought it was funny. So the backlash was instant because, sending death threats through social media is illegal in a lot of places. And then Square Enix very quickly scrambled to pull the plug. They apologized and they called it an error in judgment. You think?
No shit.
They did try to move on, but the damage was done. So instead of building hype for Hitman Absolution, they ended up on the ever-growing list of companies who needed one single person in the room to say, hey, maybe let's not encourage fake assassinations on social media.
Yeah, I read about that one and just shook my head. You're basically creating an advertising campaign around cyberbullying.
Yeah, some of them were wild. It was like, yeah.
Why? Just why?
I mean,
all right. My next one. This is a legendary one. I've got 8 words for you. John Romero's about to make you his bitch.
oh God, yeah.
Daikatana. I worked at a software, etc. when Daikatana was first announced in like 97. And I remember seeing that the release date in the system, like every couple months, would scroll later and 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 later because it was going through development hell, switching engines like 3 different times, and they couldn't get everything that they wanted into the. And then that advertising campaign comes out and just goes over like a wet fart because it is so edgelordy confrontational, and it just sets up an expectation that can't be met. And then Daikatana came out, and it barely even met the functional standards of a game. So John Romero goes from being the beloved designer of, or part of the development team of Castle Wolfenstein 3D and Doom 2 and Quake. And then he goes off on his own to make Daikatana because it's his pet project. And that advertising campaign, plus the game, pretty much ended his career. He hasn't done anything of note since. And to his credit, he had nothing to do with the ad. That was the advertising company's idea. But Jesus, that was misguided.
Yeah.
I still remember seeing it in magazines and just being like, you're kidding me, right?
Brilliant.
You were setting up an expectation that just this game better like make me waffles and give me back rubs. It better be the best thing on planet Earth.
Or the worst.
And that's what it came out to be. All right, what's your next one?
Okay. So I think we both picked Resident Evil for one. Which one did you pick? So I don't do that one. I'll do the other one.
6.
Okay. I'll leave that one to you. And I'll talk about Resident Evil 5. And it's amazing to me that they did this with 2 games in a row. And essentially, they did the same thing. Capcom, they're beloved, but they've done some questionable shit. But their Resident Evil 5 marketing campaign, which led to the fucking shit show that's 6 in London, is some next level insanity. Because nothing gets people hyped for a game like realistic severed body parts scattered around a major city. So back in 2009, Capcom thought it would be fun to promote Resident Evil 5 by hiding fake body parts all over London and turning it into a scavenger hunt. So they had just random parts chilling in places, waiting for unsuspecting pedestrians to stumble upon them and then presumably think, what the fuck did I get into? The best part is if you collected enough of these props, you could win a trip to Africa, the same location where the game, which was already knee-deep in controversy, was set. Obviously, the right thing to do, right? But to claim the prize, participants had to take their findings to the bridge and hold them up like some kind of horror ritual. Shockingly or not, this went downhill really fast. People who weren't in on the game freaked out, and a lot of people called the police. So Capcom then had to pretend like this wasn't one of the dumbest PR moves in gaming history.
And then they followed it up with Resident Evil 6.
Yes.
Where they decided to slightly pivot, keeping the body parts theme going, but making it less of a public scavenger hunt thing and more of a made to order idea, where they set up an entire butcher shop where you could order different cuts of meat in the shape of human body parts. because I know when I'm hungry, when I'm ready to cook a dinner, what I want is a pot roast in the shape of a human head, or burgers shaped like sections of a thigh or a foot. Yeah, that nothing says tone deaf like imitation cannibalism to promote your game. All right. What's next? What do you got?
All right, let's see. Jumping around here. Let's do God of War 2. Have you heard about this one?
I don't think I have.
Oh, okay. So in 2007, the launch party for God of War 2 in Athens, Greece, I think takes the cake, to be honest, out of all of these. Or rather, it takes the goat. In a movie.
Oh, I did hear about this, a little bit about this, but please go on. I don't know all the details.
Yeah, so in a move that screams bad idea, they decided to feature a decapitated goat as the centerpiece of their event because nothing says buy our game like a dead animal on display. Can you imagine like PETA's fucking reaction to this? I actually didn't look it up, but I imagine that they heard about this.
Oh yeah, for once, their humorless outrage would be justified
For sure.
because Jesus Christ.
It gets worse. So the party was designed to mirror the game's ancient Greek themes, but they took it too far. So guests were reportedly invited to reach into the goat's carcass to eat what appeared to be intestines and stuff, but Sony claimed it was a traditional Greek meat soup served in bowls because that makes it so much better.
Oh yeah, totally.
Not surprisingly, this didn't sit well with everybody. People were pissed off, and Sony scrambled to apologize, stating, "On this occasion, we recognize that we fell short of our normal high standards of conduct and apologize for any offense caused." Yeah.
Falling short is failing to turn in the Excel document you need to your boss at the end of the day. Simulating animal sacrifice and having people reach into a dead animal corpse for food is a little more than falling short.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what they were thinking. I have no fucking clue.
I don't either. God, that is insane. I'm going to pivot. I wasn't going to do this one next, but it keeps with the theme of let's gather the press on a location, but do everything wrong when they're there. So this was for a very recent game, Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2, which is a mouthful. You can tell that this is a military shooter. So the press event is set at an area that looks like a desiccated, bombed out war zone, specifically Middle Eastern. The press get there. They're then dressed up. They're forced to change and dress into military gear. So we're talking camo and fatigues and the bulletproof vests and helmets and everything. And then they're put through a training regimen to quote unquote kill bad guys. And then they proceed to go through this whole play act of tactical ops, shooting bad guys. The bad guys were supposed to be Middle Easterners, and in an even classier move, they were played by white guys. What makes all of this even more bizarre and infuriating and pointless is that at no point at this press event, quote unquote, heavier quotes, at no point did they actually mention the game. The game wasn't on display. There wasn't playable kiosks or demos, not even a video reel. So how this was meant to promote the game, ... question mark.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what they were thinking at all.
Yeah.
To be honest.
I'm wondering if it was the same advertising team from God of War 2.
They all must be the same.
What have you got next?
Let's see. Okay. Dead Space 2 scared your mom. EA's marketing team really woke up one day and said, you know who we should target? People who actively don't play horror games. And so that's how we ended up with Dead Space 2, Your Mom Hates This campaign, which was a desperate attempt to make the game seem rebellious by showing a bunch of middle-aged moms reacting like they had just walked in on a live exorcism. So the whole campaign was built around secretly recording moms watching gameplay footage and then cutting to their reactions, like clutching their pearls, gasping in disgust, dramatically shaking their heads. And EA thought that this was going to sell copies. They eventually launched a website, yourmomhatesthis.com, which is hilarious for so many reasons, doubling down on the idea that if your mom is disgusted or upset, then you obviously need to play this game. Because I think, nothing gets teenage boys to buy a product like a passive-aggressive guilt trip from the parents. The problem, nobody cared. Dead Space fans, I mean, it's a great game, to be honest, didn't need mom-approved disapproval to buy a sequel to an already beloved horror game. So it just made EA look like they were trying way too hard to manufacture controversy. It wasn't edgy. It wasn't shocking. It was just like weirdly off target. So Dead Space 2 obviously did fine. The series is great, but it wasn't because of this campaign. If anything, EA just reminded us that video game marketing is often just, I don't know, out of pocket.
Again, you've forced me to pivot from what I was going to say next to something that is tangentially connected. I'm going to go with another EA game, Dante's Inferno. This has not one, not two, but three different poorly executed, poorly thought out marketing campaigns behind it. So the game was supposed to be a loose interpretation of the book Dante's Inferno. It really was just a God of War clone. It was a decent game. Nothing special, but it was perfectly fine. They decided to triple down in so many different ways to try and get this game noticed by the public. The first was that at E3, when they were showing off this game, there were protesters outside of the hall that E3 was taking place in, condemning EA for the game because it has to do with Dante's Inferno, and Dante's Inferno has a lot of ties to hell and Christianity. There's a lot of religious imagery and iconography and such within the game, and these protesters were protesting that EA was trying to not monopolize. They were trying to mock Christianity or take advantage of it, and they were appealing to Satanists. The protesters were actors hired by EA to create fake outrage for the game to get noticed. But wait, there's more. Second phase, while at the San Diego Comic-Con, right before it was released, they had an event where, the game was available and they wanted to portray the sins because, again, it's a game with religious ties, so the 7 deadly sins were on display. So they had gluttony and they had greed and they had wrath, and the articles that I read did not go into detail about how those sins were portrayed, but the one sin that comes into play here would be lust. They had a lot of what were known at the time was booth babes, models who were dressed very sexually and were there to get attention because mid 2000s, for some reason, they decided that boobs had to be associated with every game. EA actively, vocally encouraged people who were at the San Diego Comic-Con to commit, and I quote, acts of lust with the models. Basically, you have our permission to sexually harass the models.
Leave it to Jed to make shit depressing again.
Oh, but wait. And sorry about that. But wait, we've also got the third phase. They also created a fake online service very similar to Hitman, Absolution would do several years later, except you wouldn't be trying to assassinate someone. You would use this service to fake try to steal someone's girlfriend. I have not found a way or an article that explains how that system worked, but yeah.
Magic.
Is it any wonder why EA managed to be the world's most hated company on that yearly poll that comes out and did it back-to-back years? They're a magic company.
They also, I think, like to nickel and dime gamers probably more than any other fucking company ever.
Yeah. I'd say it's a competition, them and Activision.
What Star Wars game came out and you paid full retail for it. And then they were like, actually, this isn't the full game. You have to pay. What the fuck game was it?
Was that Battlefront 2?
Yeah, the Battlefront games.
Yeah, where you had to like grind for
Yeah, and then
80 hours to get
they
enough
were
virtual currency to buy a loot box to hopefully get the character that you wanted.
that, and like the game was not really a full game. And they're like, yeah, you have to buy all these expansions. They did the same shit with Sims, where the base game is, I mean, it's great, but you have to buy all these expansions that are $20 each. They never have them on. It's fucking insane. Like, most of us are just trying to survive. We shouldn't have to spend thousands of dollars on a fucking hobby. You know what I mean? So fuck you, EA. It's not in the game.
Fucking EA. All right, let's move on from them, please.
Yes.
What's your next one?
All right. This is a THQ game. I actually played this game. I actually liked this game, and it's Homefront. So,
I had this one on my list, but by all means, go for it.
oh, did you? You can do it.
No, I've got plenty more. I've
Okay.
got plenty more.
So THQ, their 2011 attempt to promote Homefront was just, I don't know what they were trying to do. The game's plot involves a North Korean invasion of the United States, which in hindsight seemed so far-fetched. But today it's like, well, maybe it could fucking happen. Who knows? So they decided to release 10,000 red balloons into the sky over San Francisco Bay. Why? Because symbolism. Duh. The balloons were supposed to represent resistance fighters, but instead of looking revolutionary, it obviously looked like pollution. So predictably, because who knew that the San Francisco Bay was windy, all of these balloons didn't just magically disappear into the void. They ended up clogging waterways, littering the streets, and pissing off a lot of people. Yeah, they're non-biodegradable. But they did try to claim that they were biodegradable, but they weren't. And the city was just pissed off. So the whole thing spiraled into a PR nightmare. There were a lot of headlines about how Homefront was ruining the Bay instead of the game. And yeah, people didn't really I liked the game, but I was young when it came out. I just played anything mindlessly at that point. But obviously, instead of drumming up excitement, they had to pay for a very high budget littering event, proving once again that thinking things through is never a priority in gaming marketing.
Yeah, I had that one on my list for that exact same reason of what gave you the bright idea to send 10,000 pieces of latex into the San Francisco Bay, an area, I mean, any bay is going to be teeming with wildlife, but Jesus, there are so many like sea lions and seals and plenty of fish and
Yeah.
fucking whales can be seen sometimes out in San Francisco Bay.
Yeah. It's dumb because I remember on TikTok I believe they were doing it in Thailand. I know the show is from South Korea, but the new Squid Game, they had the little girl from one of the games where she has like sensors in her eye. You have to stop and go, and then if you don't stop, she shoots you. That creepy little girl for the kid game, like on a giant tugboat going through the water. And I was like, this is fucking effective, genius marketing. Why can't video games just never have marketing like that? And there's like a song that plays when it's safe to run, and when the song stops, you stop. So they were blasting that song. Beautiful marketing, not also polluting.
All right. My next one is a game. I didn't play the game mainly because once I heard the truth about it, I lost all interest. So I have nothing to say personally about the game, but the marketing did this game dirty. The game is called Brutal Legend. It was the Xbox 360, Wii, PlayStation 3 era. This game is revealed as this epic fantasy adventure action game starring a character that is based on Jack Black, and he's giving his image and likeness to it, and I believe he's voicing the character as well. Heavy metal plays a big role in this game. It's got this huge soundtrack of heavy metal greats, like Dio and Metallica and Slayer and just 80s and 90s metal. You could tell the audience for this. I was the audience for this. I'm not even a Jack Black fan, but I was like, okay, cool. A game based about heavy metal and it's kicking demons' asses and it's this crazy third-person adventure. Sounds great. Key word was third-person adventure. It was not that. It was a turn-based strategy game. And they completely hid that in the marketing. Every pre-release video was either cinematics or there's like 10% of the game at the beginning where you are actually in a third person perspective and kind of roaming around a free area. All of the marketing in the video focused on that and completely hid that the other 90% of it becomes basically Warcraft with a badass soundtrack.
Yeah.
Total fucking misfire.
Yeah, that game was not great.
It didn't look great. Like, it looked fine, but they built it up to be something that it was not. And I don't know whose bright idea that was, but that killed that game.
For sure.
All right. What do you got next?
This is my last one, actually. It is Splinter Cell Conviction. So Ubisoft has also had their share of marketing misfires, but in 2010, they pulled a stunt in New Zealand for Splinter Cell Conviction. And I think this one is at the top of the list for what the fuck were they thinking. To promote the game, they hired an actor to run around in Auckland, dressed as Sam Fisher, complete with a realistic looking firearm. Yeah.
Ooh, that wouldn't cause a public panic at all.
Yeah, in a country where, people don't just typically run around brandishing firearms. So it's not America. So this didn't go over well. There were a lot of panic bystanders that called the police, and the police quickly intervened. And the actor was lucky to escape without injury, but they had to issue a public apology and admitting that this probably was not the best idea. And yeah, instead of generating a lot of buzz for the game, they caused a lot of legitimate public panic and fucking terror and wasted the police's time and efforts. So to me, this takes the cake for marketing fails. And it's a prime example of a promotional stunt gone just about as wrong as it could possibly go.
Yeah, that is not a good one. That is, oof. All right. We started off with Atari. I'm going to end with Atari. Have you heard of there was 4 games? Well, technically 4. The Earthworld, Waterworld, Fireworld, Windworld games, or
No.
Airworld. So 1982, and a developer in Atari comes up with this concept for 4 games that are going to be interconnected. It's this story that each game is going to be somewhat RPG-ish. I mean, it's Atari 2600, so they're very light on the RPG aspect, but still, they're going to have a little bit of a quest involved, but the gameplay for each one is going to be a little different, but they're all going to be tied to each other based on all the elements. So, like I said, there's an Earth world, and then a fire world, and an air world, and a water world, or a sea world, something like that. And you beat one and you get a code to put into the next one, and that continues on. And they also wrote full color comic books for these things that laid out the story even more, and there were codes you had to crack within the story, within the comic book, and the codes tied to the game. And so you get code from the game and code from the comic book, and you have to combine them and decode them. And it was like an early ARG. And with each game, if you cracked the code and you sent it in, you were eligible to win a prize. And this wasn't like, hey, you win to $100 or you win an Atari game or something like that. No, these were ungodly expensive baubles. The first one was a Philosopher's Stone, which kind of wasn't it didn't look like a Fabergé egg, but kind of like, it's hard to explain, but it was jewel encrusted. It was gold, and it was valued, I believe, at the time somewhere around $25,000, which for 1982, that's quite a lot. The second game, if I remember correctly, was a jewel encrusted crown, real jewels, real gold. Again, something like $25,000 in value. The third prize was this massive Excalibur size broadsword. Again, jewel encrusted, legitimate sword, valued in the tens of thousands of dollars. And that third game came out in 1983. And it was supposed to be building up to the fourth game. And then after the fourth game, the four winners were going to play against each other in an ultimate quest. And the winner of that was going to get, oh God, I'm blanking on it and I forgot to write it down. It was a crazy prize. I think like $250,000. But like I said, that third game came out in 1983, the year of the video game crash, the year when Atari went into the fucking toilet. The fourth game never came out. The winner of the first one did get his prize, but the other two prizes have never surfaced. They're believed to be at the time, I believe they were believed to be in the home of Atari's then CEO, Jack Tramiel. That's never been proven, and Jack has denied it, but Jack Tramiel was also a pathological liar, so take that for what you will. But yeah, the fact that Atari had the audacity to run what was a frankly insane contest with prizes and costs that were beyond a reasonable budget as the market was starting to circle the drain, at best was foolhardy. At worst was hubris writ large. You don't give away tickets to the Titanic as the boat is hitting the iceberg. And that's what they did.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking crazy.
And again, to this day, as of our recording in mid-February 2025, those last two prizes still have not surfaced.
The world will never know.
No. And they're beautiful too. I mean, Atari went above and beyond in making those things. But who knows where they are now? Postscript to it, though, a year or so ago, Atari, was Atari and I think it's Digital Eclipse. They released a compilation called Atari 50, which was celebrating 50 years of Atari. And there's a shitload of games in there. And they dug up a lot of prototypes and a lot of unreleased games. And one of the things they dug up was a prototype of the final unreleased game in the quadrilogy. And they finished it with help, I believe, from the specs and the script from the designer, and it's available on the compilation. So the contest is dead, but you can at least complete the saga if you really want to.
No.
I'm not, because no thanks.
Exactly.
This was fun. It was fun to mock the video game industry for something other than poor business decisions and bad design.
Yeah, it's fun to shake things up a bit.
All right. This is the time where we plug our shit. So here is the plugs. firstgengamerspod@gmail.com if you would like to email us. firstgengamerspod on Blue Sky and Instagram.
And TikTok.
Like, share, review us, please. Just helps us get out, spread the word.
Subscribe.
Appreciate it. Subscribe. Absolutely. Ashley, plug your stuff.
F that pod on TikTok and Blue Sky. F that _pod on Instagram. That's it.
Yep. Oh, if you want to follow me, Street to Jet on Blue Sky.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Until next time, everyone.
Toodaloo-hoo.